So today we're going to be slab building using softer slabs, making shapes which are curvilinear. And you have a choice when you're making these curvilinear shapes. They can be smooth or textured. And in just a second, I'm going to show you about putting the texture on. But what I want to do is cut some strips which are the height of the forms I'm making. So if I'm making a tumbler, what a tumbler is, it's a drinking vessel. It's taller than it is wider, and you can get your hands around it. So that's a tumbler, right? So that the diameter, like the sides, you can get your hand around. So this is probably like 3 inches or less. That's something you get your hand around. Wider than that, you need a handle, or you could put a handle on it. But the main thing is taller than it is wider for a tumbler. Cups can be as tall as it is wide. It can go, or it can be a little taller. It doesn't matter. So what I want to do is cut a strip, and in this case, what I'm going to do is cut 2 strips, and one strip will be just a little bit higher than the other. Like when we were using flat-sided slabs, we're going to measure twice. So in this case, I'm going to make a 5.5 inch height vessel. We could go a little higher. Let's go 6 inches. I think we have plenty of slab to do it. So we're going to, 5.5. Let's go 5.5. I changed my mind. 5.5, 5.5. And in this case, this is also 5.5, which is fine. All right, so I'm going to cut this. And with this extra spare slab, what I'm going to do is I'm going to just show you different textures that you could use. So I could take this, it's got to be wet. I'll make a little sampler here. So that almost gives like a Lego type texture. This is a piece of ductwork. So that gives like a linear texture. This is from a toy truck. These truck tires. This is a piece of conduit, right? Or electric rebar, rather. This is conduit. This is a piece of rebar. So it's like the plastic conduit. And it just keeps going. I have lots of this. This is a piece of gutter guard. With some of the plainer textures, it's useful just to use a rolling pin. This is more gutter guard. I don't know what that's from. It just looked interesting. Okay, so that gives you an idea of textures. So what I'm going to do is take these and I'm going to put a single texture on each one of these, but I need to carefully take this off. Come on, there we go. Excellent. I'm going to put this aside. And then I'm going to make 2 cylinders, just rough them out. So I'm going to turn this over just to release. This has been on here for quite some time, so it doesn't stick. Okay, so first thing I want to do is, if I'm drinking out of this, I want to make what's called an ergonomic lip. So what I'm going to do is pull the canvas over. You won't be getting, if you get your own canvas, you won't be needing one this big. And I want to make sure that where I folded, that fold is absolutely tight and flush against the side there. And then I'm going to press, squeeze that, press down, and what I'm doing is I'm pushing it into that curve there, so I get a nice rounded lip that I can drink out of. It's really important. Okay, so that's done. And now I can choose the texture I want to use. I've used this already. Let's try something different. How about a conduit? I'm just kind of taking my time. And you don't have to use texture. It's just an option. Texture is just something, it's a decorative element that gives it visual interest. All right, so this is going to be on the outside, so I want to carefully turn this over. And you know what, just to make it a little bit easier, I'm going to go back in and cut that again. Because I altered this a little bit, I think I'm going to shorten this just a little bit too. 5 1/4, 5 1/4. All right. Get rid of that strip. Turn this, carefully turn this over. All right. And then once it's here, you can take a cardboard cylinder. If you had PVC, if you had something at home you could use, but anything cylindrical, we can cut that down just a little bit, I think. Okay, so I have that other one there, strip. Our bottom, we're going to use part of that for the bottom. We'll make 2 of these. So same thing again. I take my strip. And make sure this is level. Good. Fold it over. Press it. Right? So we have the ergonomic lip. Ergonomic, for those of you who don't know, it means user-friendly. So when you hold it, whether it's a pen or a steering wheel or a power tool, it's comfortable. In the case of drinking, it would be comfortable to drink out of. Important stuff. Okay, so. And we'll make this maybe a little shorter, 5. Let's go 5. All right. Looks like I didn't get the lip that I wanted, so I'm going to do that again. It's still kind of square looking. Okay, so now we'll try a different one. So we turn it over. And I'm remembering which sides, that's the top side. That's the other side's the bottom. Around, cut it. Okay. This one, I think we're going to redo the lip on that. All right, so that lip is pretty good. I'm just going to redo this one because I don't think I pressed hard enough on it. So the lip is going to go up there, and then I can pull this out, and I have beginning of a curve shape. So what I want to do with both of these is we're going to alter these and put bottoms on them. Okay, so the first thing I'd like to do is get, if I'm making a tumbler, one will be a tumbler, let's say we'll make a tumbler out of this one, and this one will make a cup with a handle. So what I'm going to do is overlap it, just like I did when I was coil building, right? And then I'm going to take my fettling knife, and I'm just going to cut down. But remember, we want to do a mitered joint, because a mitered joint is always stronger. So we're going to, not like that, but about a 45-degree angle, or even steeper, and straight down. If we do that, we wind up with, it fits perfectly. All right, so that's pretty good, but it's really nothing to write home about. Let's do some more things to it to make it interesting. So one of the things we could do is we could alter the joint a little bit. So we'll do that just a little bit. So let's see what happens when we take a little bit out. So you can see already I'm starting to shape it. So let's take that further. So that what happens if we leave the top wide, but we take more out the bottom. So now we're starting to play with the shape a little bit. I'm looking at this, I'm thinking, so whenever I look at something, like any kind of work, whether it's my own work or student work, I ask, like, what's beginning to work? So I like that curve there, but what I'd like to see is maybe it emphasized more. So maybe this could pop out more, and maybe this could go in more. So what I'm doing is emphasizing what's already there by pushing out the areas which want to go out and in. So this is going in, and then to get this to go in more, we need to take more off the bottom. So when I'm cutting, I'm not sawing. I'm cutting it just like I'm cutting a piece of cream cheese or something. And I'm not going to be afraid to turn this over either. So remember I said the clay shrinks about 15% or more. So bear this in mind when you make something. You want to make it larger than the actual thing that you see it being in the end. All right, so far it's been pretty clean. My hands have been clean. I'm ready to put this together and then do a few other things to this. So I'm going to take my slip here, And I'm going to slip and score this. And then I want to wipe my hands, not here, just on a rag. And then push this together. So then to clean this up, I'm going to take my soft bristle brush and clean this and smooth this out. And then this side here, what I'd like to do is maybe the opposite of that. Let's see. So I'm going to take a little piece out here. Not too acute, but just... So one side's going in, and one side's going out. So if I feel that's okay, so it's almost like kind of snaking a little bit. I like the movement of the shape. So I'm going to take, I can live with that. Now if I wanted to adjust it, I could cut just, if I don't want to go in quite so drastically, I could cut out just a sliver more because I haven't committed to, and just see it. Okay, that's good, I can live with that. So now we're going to slip and score. Hands clean, and we're just going to push that together. So, and when you're doing this, when you're slab building, you're going to have seams. And think of the seams almost like your clothing, right? You know, the person that made this did not try to smooth out the seams, you know, like adding more thread or concealing it. What they did was they patiently, even if it was done very quickly, but they patiently, with good craftsmanship, made good seams which would not come apart. And they're part of the design, and they have a beauty unto themselves. So that's the way to think about seams. I'm not going to obsess with lining up all those lines. I just want them to stick together. Okay, so that's, I can jump back to that. I'm going to let that dry a little bit. Okay, let's do another one. So this one, I'm going to do the same thing, but I'm going to, this one I'll make a little, that's more asymmetrical. But this one, what we're going to do is I'll alter the corner. So we're going to start off with the same thing. Make sure it's touching. 45-degree angle straight down. Get rid of that piece, that piece. We're going to turn, I'm going to score this together. So remember, this is the ergonomic side. So that nice lip I talked about, you can drink out of, that side's going to go up. We're going to push this together. And then what I'm going to do is turn this over, and then what I'm going to do is divide this up into 4 sides. So the top will be kind of rounded, but what we're going to do is bring in the sides. So I'm going to start with my joint, and I'm going to take out 4 pieces. So 1. So these could be straight. I could make this curved if I want to make it more pronounced. You know, if I wanted to emphasize, I could go do something like this. So 1. So before I do this, let me split this up into quarters and hope I got this right. That looks pretty good. Okay, so I'm going to take this, and I'm going to use this as a template. So you could do this evenly. Here I'm kind of doing it off to the right side of the line. So the you'll see the pot will have almost like a spinning movement. And I'm going to push these together. Okay, so now I'm going to slip and score these. And then I'm going to clean this up. Right, if you need filler, just add a little bit of slip with water. We're going to clean this up. Turn this over. So this one's going to have a handle. And I think what I'm going to do is make a negative space for the handle right here. So I'm going to take this, and I'm going to take out a little, it's almost like a elongated football shape. This is going to go in, so we have a negative space for the handle to go. So make sure your hands stay clean when you're doing this. So what I'm going to do is let this dry a little bit, and then I can think about putting a handle on this. So, another thing that you can do to alternate. So right now, everything I've done in terms of shaping has been with cutting and altering. So another way of altering form is pushing the slab out. So you can do this with either a ball paddle or a spoon, right? So I can take my ball paddle and I can round this off if I want to emphasize, make it beyond curvilinear. You could even just take a straight cylinder and push it out. This is too hard to do it, but you could just pretty much do it. So I'm going to do the same thing here. So this is a way of altering the form without cutting. You're just pushing it out. If you don't have a paddle, you can use a spoon. But you would use a spoon like a rib where you're using the edge of the spoon. So the spoon will also work too. You just kind of but you're using the edge so it's going away. If you go like this, it's going to catch, but the edge is going away. So I can take this and actually shape it this way. So what I'm going to do is just make sure the joints, I'm going to clean this up, make sure the joints of this are together. But you can see already, I could make cups, I could make pitchers, I could make sculptural vases. There's a lot of potential this technique has. The main thing is before I let this set up, I want to make sure all those joints are together where they don't come apart. If you go across campus, you can go to the welding facility, and they'll say the secret to a good weld is penetration. So in ceramics, that would mean slipping and scoring and just making sure everything's pressed together. Okay. I'm not going to worry about that right now. So these are going to go outside. This is just a simple cylindrical cylinder, and I'm going to make a lidded container from this. And I'm going to borrow some of the same techniques that I had from the flat slab. So what I have here are two lids. The first I made just by taking a tennis ball with a slab and then poking it in here and altering it. But before I did that, I took a wooden tool before I did that, and I split this up into quarters and then eighths, right? So I can make a lid for this. Before I make a lid, I'd have to take a coil and put it on the inside. But I made two deliberately so I'd have a choice. So this one's more cone-like. So this was just done by taking a thicker slab, making the marks, and then slumping it. This is called a slump mold. You take a slab and just slump it over. It can be this, it could be a tennis ball or a softball, or you could use, you can make your own out of foam. I have students that take newspaper, and they make a shape, and they use that slump mold to maybe make a bowl or a shallow dish. Another way of doing it is to take a slab, and then from the slab, you make a circle. You cut the circle out. Right? Now this is a little wet to do this with, so that'll work. And then you find the middle, and then you take a piece of pie out. And the bigger the piece of pie, the steeper the cone you get. So if I take a little piece, I get a shallow cone, but if I take a bigger piece like this, bigger piece I get. So if I want that to go up more, to be more distinct as a cone, I take the bigger piece out. But that's pretty much making a cone. So that's what I did here. So I took a piece out. So I could clean this up, either one. I kind of like this one here, so I'm going to go with this. But this is just another way of making a lid. So we have the slump mold, and we have the round slab where you took a piece of pie out. All right, so if I want to get this to work, what I would do is, to find out where I need to attach it, here's a little technique I'll show you. I take the slip, I hit it here, and then I'm going to get this even. I'm going to mark that, right? And that's going to tell me where I need to attach the coil. So right below that line, I would attach a coil. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to roll it out like a thin ring. I'm going to roll out a coil. And this can be used, this technique of the inlaying it can be used for the flat-sided lids as well. So roll out the coil. It should be long enough to go around the circumference of the interior of the lid. And then what I'm going to do is, it's nice and wet, I'm going to take this and I'm going to create three sides. I don't want this to get too sticky, right? And one of the sides is going to be attached to the inside of the lid. So I'm going to take this, right, and I'm going to slip and score this. So I'm going to slip and score just below this with this great scoring tool I have here. I call it the scratchy tool, but this will pay off in diamonds to get one of these. And then I'm going to lay it here just so it keeps its shape. And I'm going to do the same thing to this. Just need to do one side. And then, keeping it there, I'm going to go around. And I'm going to see where I need to cut it. So looks like I need to cut it right there. And then I'm going to carefully press it in there, try not to make too much of a mess, using my hand as a mold. And then I can clean that up, refine that later. But the main thing is it has a seat now to fit snugly on the vessel form. All right. Okay, so I did leave one last thing out. This pot has no bottom. So to make a bottom, if you wanted to dress it up a little bit, you could put a textured bottom on the bottom. So what I'm going to do is, if I want to just get rounded, I could, there's a few ways you could do this, but this is one, probably the simplest. All right, and then I'm going to score this, the bottom, right? And this is a butt joint, right? So the wall, we made a miter joint. This is a butt joint. Butt joints work best where you have gravity, where one thing is putting the weight on top of the other. If the joint is more vertical, whether it's a curved slab or a flat slab, it really should be a mitered joint. So I'm going to do this, but I'm thinking I'm just going 3/8 of an inch in, and then I'm going to smooth it out my finger, because that's going to be easier. I'm going to smooth this out. I just need a little bit there. That's good. The rest I can get with a brush. And then I'm going to take this, and remember, my hands are clean. At least the fronts of my hands here. Maybe not the backs. And then I'm going to put that there. This is very satisfying. Watch this. It sticks like magic. All right, make sure that's on there. And then I'm going to cut this using a fettling knife. But before I do that, I want to do one thing. I'm going to smooth out that slip. I'm going to smooth out the joint there so I have a nice way of guiding it. And I want to do the inside, right? Because like when you look at the pot, it's kind of nice looking at something and seeing it's clean. And then I'm going to hold this fettling knife just like a pencil. And I'm going to just clean that up so I have a nice, doesn't have to be a sharp corner, but it's a nice clean corner that I can see. Last chance to get it even. Okay. And then what I'm going to do is not going to cut right against, I'm going to cut just out from the corner, like maybe 1/4 of an inch at an angle. I'm doing this deliberately without it. This would be easier with a banding wheel, but I'm showing you how that you can, if you're careful, you can work symmetrically in a circle without a banding wheel, if you're careful. This is one of the more satisfying things in ceramics. Look at that. Okay, so then, generally speaking, in ceramics, I would say you want to avoid sharp edges. So I like the lip of this. Okay. So now, we have something. So again, we could make a knob on this. We'll get a piece of plastic clay, and it's up to you how fanciful you want to make it. I go more into this when I'm making lids for knobs, but here, we'll do something with this here. So what I'm going to do, since this is partially dome shape, I'll make something that's kind of elongated, reflects that. I'm going to make this will be kind of almost like almost kind of bullet shape or like a long chocolate kiss. And then I'm going to emboss that. So this is similar to like what I did here. And then I'm going to twist this a little bit, just to give it a little movement. And then what would be the last thing I do? I'd slip and score. I don't want to leave the studio today without slip and scoring this. So I'll slip and score. It's done. Okay, so now we have these cups here. And let's put bottoms on these. So I'm going to take some of this texture here. I'm going to have this. These are all season cups. You know, they won't slip in the snow. So I'm going to do the same thing here. I'll turn these upside down if I want to go faster. And I'm going to put some slip here. I'm going to mark. And this will enable me to mark this where I need to cut it without being too messy. And this will act as a stamp. So I'm going to go 1, 2, and then I'm going to cut this in half. I'm not going to cut these out yet. This is just to give me a rough idea where I need to score these. So score once on the base. Remember, it's a butt joint. Butt joint, miter joint. We're going to get out of here. Okay. So, whoops. 1. 2. So I'm going to clean up the inside. So I'm going to actually use these. Isn't it? It's kind of fun to think about, hey, I could be having my ice, you know, if this was actually a summer class. Let's see, and I finish this tonight. It would be dry. Probably within a day or two. I could bisque fire it over the weekend. If I was doing a firing next week, who knows, like a week or two from today, I'd be drinking iced tea out of this. That's kind of an interesting thing. How many classes can you say that here at Parkland? But you just want to pay attention. It's little details that make a difference. Okay, so that the inside's done. We want to clean up the bottom. And we have this nice ergonomic lips. And to save some time, we're going to, some microseconds, we're going to use this, now that I've shown it without it. So we're going to hold it here, just like a pencil, right? Like, there's no control here. This is okay for, like, fencing, but if you want to do detail, hold it this way. This is how they do it over at Carl. And then off, right? Clean it up. That's done, except if it wants a handle. Okay, same thing here. And just water and slip, it does wonders. You can't coil build a pot this fast. I think, like with the handle, I can almost slab build cups as fast as I can throw them if you include the trimming and the handles. Because with slab building, one of the nice things is there's no trimming and there's no weighting. So let's talk about handles. Part of the slab demo is making handles. So what I'm going to do is show you a way of making handles using a coil. Sometimes the coil is even, and sometimes the coil is tapered, where it goes from wide to narrow. So I'm going to start simple and then make more complex. First thing you will need will be really wet, well-wedged clay. So the wetter the better, fairly wet. And then I'm going to take the wedged clay, and what I'm going to do is make a carrot. Size of like a generic large carrot. I'm going to take that, and I'm going to roll this so it goes from wide to narrow. So what I have here are different, I'll turn these side so you can see these better. They all kind of look like question marks. But these were all coil built slab. They've dried out a little bit. So one uniform. So that's pretty generic right there, see? So what you do is you roll it out. If I were going to keep this, I would say, oh, does it need to be that thick? And I might come some of it down. So the best handles are not overworked. So there's a couple things to think about with that, is that if you're clearing doing this, it goes faster. If you want to save yourself time, you act neater. So there's one. Really simple. So what I'm doing here is this cup that I made a little while ago. What I'm doing is I'm thinking about like what handle would work best. So when I'm making handles for this assignment, the slab assignment, what I do is think of it like going in and buying some kind of apparel, like a hat. So if you're buying hats, or you're buying a pair of pants or shirt that goes with something, you don't buy the first one. Or shoes. Shoes are a good one. You try different things on. So you look at it, you see how they fit. It's the same thing if you're adding a pot to a part. So with the lids, we try different lids on. So this one, what I'm going to do is, I have this. So it's just like this one here, but I'm going to do something a little bit different with this one. I'm going to flatten it out. So I'm going to fold it over, just like when I made the early. I'm going to go like that, but I'm going to do one other thing here. I'll show you. So I'm pressing down here to make a double edge here, like a double-edged sword. Right? 1, 2, 1, 2, right? Voila, right? And then I'm going to cut this at an angle, 1, 2. And when I cut this off, I'm going to go this way, so I have a nice edge. Just notice I cut it off this way, so I didn't mess with that. So there's another one. Let's do, so remember I said they're going to get more complex. So let's do another one. So tapered carrot. It used to be, when I taught here some years ago, people would come out of high school and there were kind of archetypal figures, creatures that people would make. Oftentimes you would see a unicorn. I don't know what it was, with fantasy. Anyway, with the unicorns, like the most interesting thing about them is that little ivory tusk they have on their forehead, which actually I think it comes from the narwhal, it's that whale that lives in the Arctic, the male. And they think that somebody, like traders, got a hold of this in the Middle Ages, and people were saying where it came from, and then someone made up a story, oh, it's from a unicorn. I don't know if there's any truth to that or not. All right, so anyway, I'm going to take this tapered one here, and I'm going to subdivide this to quarters. And then I'm going to twist this. This is almost like, reminds me a little bit of taffy, or is it when they make candy canes? I think they do something like this. Anyway, wrought iron is also like this. Isn't that nice? A little twist to the plot. Okay, so there's another. And I'm going to go this way, just. Let's keep going. Let's try one. This will be almost like, I would say this would be analogous to like almost a molding that you might see in a house, especially older houses. Old Victorian houses have a lot of ornate molding. Victorian architecture is known for that. You know, from the lattice to the molding above and below porches and around windows. Okay, so what I'm going to do is just flatten this out a little bit. Maybe put an edge here, that sharp edge. Remember the double-edged sword? So I'm pressing here and here. It's really important so I get an edge on each side. And then what I'm going to do is split this up in half. I think that's in half. 1, 2, and it's going to go from wide to narrow to coincide with that's almost Art Deco. Okay, so there we have it. All right, so we're going to cut this. This is going to go with the pot here like that. So there's another one, right? Let's do 2 more. So I have a tapered stick here. This is like a paddle I use for smoothing the insides of pots. But I go 1, 2, that one I'm not as crazy for. It's not bad though. Okay. So there's another. Here, I'll show you another one would be a ring one. Let's do a ring one. So all these are almost like question mark shaped ones, all of these here. Let's try one that's like maybe more twisted. So this time what I'm going to do is going to make almost like a dog bone. And then, let's see here. Okay. The idea is that it kind of loops around, you're making a ring. We can do some variations of that. Let's try and make another one. We'll take that question mark and we'll bring it all the way around. So if it's kind of square, I can roll that. But I think if I turn this, it's not going to matter. So what I'm going to do is do the unicorn thing here. But then I'm going to take this around, keep turning this, until it goes 360 degrees. And then this is where it's going to be connected somehow. So there's another one. It's a variation of it. All right, so like these are some examples, like these are some other ones where I took rebar and what I did was I took my coil, I took the rebar, put it in there, went back and forth. Another one people like make. This was made, there's people that make braids. Another popular one you can make. This will be the last one I show, I think. And then what we'll do is we're going to try these out here and see which one works best. So I'm going to make a thinner coil, get it nice and wet, because I'm going to ask a lot of this coil in a second. And then I'm going to fold it in half and then and then twist it. So this is very weak this way. This is really bad to make pot. I see people make things like using just loose coils. This is not strong at all. It is bad news this way. So I'll show you what I'm going to do. I'm going to make sure this is long enough to be a handle. And then I'm going to fold this over, just like I did with the other ones. And I'm going to flatten this out, putting the corner on it. And in doing this, this is going to make it twice as strong. So if I use this, it's not going to break. So there's my bottom or my top, and then this would come around and be attached. Okay, so let's look at this pot. Chris, you want to participate in this one? Just shake your head. Sure. Just all you got to do is shake your head. You don't have to talk. Okay, we got A, B. B would have to be cut a little bit if we use that. We got B. We got C. So some of these, I made these deliberately because if you make them larger, you can always make them smaller. If you make them smaller, you can't make them bigger. So these have to be tailored a little bit. We could go more smooth. There's a round, that's the first one we made. Not bad. A little rebar, a boo-bar. Right? And then we got a little rope-a-dope. We got the loop-de-doop. Well, Chris, what do you pick one? What do you like?
I like just plain smooth one.
Okay, plain smooth one. You got it. So round plain smooth or flat plain smooth? Flat, you got it. All right, so Chris has selected this. So I'm looking at this. It looks a little small. for this big pot. So what I'm going to do is just make that again really fast. So I've got my prototype. I'm just going to make the scale a little bit bigger because it's got big cup, big handle. Chris, that's going to hold a lot of iced tea, you know what I'm saying? So that's what you need on a hot day like today. Okay, come on. That's better. Okay, let's try it out. So what I'm going to get this to work, so we slip and score, right, always. So ideally, I would let this get maybe just a little harder, the slab, but this will work. So here, and that, I might flatten that out just a little bit so it's not so pointy. That corner that pops out, that's where I want my handle to flow right off the pot. And then this one I need to do a little bit, but it's kind of soft. I don't want to mangle it, so just enough to where I can get a bite in it like that, see? All right, so now when I attach this, I don't want to stick it this way. I want to kind of lift it up, and I want to make sure that handle is below the lip. It's less likely to break that way in the dish. And then, oops, I did a little bit too much there. So I'm going to making sure it's lined up, like it's kind of level. Okay, so a really common mistake people make and they mess up this handle. It's like, remember, the less you handle it, the better. So before I attach this, I want to make sure this is where I want it. So I would take some water. Try water first. And if that doesn't work, take some water with just a little bit of slip. So slip, water, and the slip will fill in any of the score marks. And then ask yourself what else needs to be done if there's anything else. So the bottom here, I could clean this up. You know, if you have gaps like this can be cleaned up. And then I can soften this a little bit later. All done.